In Module 3, we talk about paradigm shifts, specifically those in the tech industry, and a paradigm shift is essentially a fundamental change in approach or underlying assumptions. The article that we were given to read in Module 3, Paradigm Shifts in the Tech Industry, talks about how IBM dominated the tech industry in the 1960s, and then Apple I came out in 1975, and that created the entire value chain to shift. So personal computers were now the new paradigm, and they became more necessary because things started to switch to being online, so there actually became more of a need for personal computers. And then the article basically just talks about the most powerful tech companies being Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook, because the companies were able to capitalize on the paradigm shift to the web and mobile devices. Every paradigm shift thus far has really changed the way that we interact with machines. And the article predicts Snapchat to be the next paradigm shift because of the lenses that they use. It says that the company reported, Snapchat being the company, reported that over 170 million Snapchat users interact with lenses daily. I mean, I don't use them every day, but occasionally they're fun, I guess. And then to continue talking about shifts from the article about paradigm shifts, in chapter 3 we learned about mega shifts, which there are 10 different mega shifts named in chapter 3. Digitalization, mobilization, screenification, disintermediation, transformation, intelligization, automation, virtualization, anticipation, and robotization. The big difference between paradigm shift and a mega shift is that a paradigm shift has to do more with like changing the way of thinking and philosophy, and then a mega shift is a representation of a huge evolutionary step for society, and it's going to have a really big impact, although it may seem small in the beginning. Chapter 3 talks about all the different mega shifts that I named, but the one that I found most interesting was robotization, because it says that robots are the embodiment of all the mega shifts, which I guess means that it's like the big finale or something like that. I don't know, but I think it's really interesting because it talks about robots being involved in everything that we do, being everywhere. And I think that's really cool to think about, because I just have no idea what that would actually look like. Like, I can think of it in my head and I think of the movies that I've seen, but I can't actually picture it happening. As society becomes more and more technologically based, there's going to be a lot more jobs that use technology and maybe even robots, and society's going to have to find a way to adapt. So that's where chapter 4 comes in, because it talks about automating society, and it's based off of the mega shift from chapter 3, automation. According to chapter 4, there's going to be higher productivity levels, but there's going to be fewer jobs for people, which will mean there will be more techno-billionaires, but there's going to be a shrinking middle class, which is going to be challenging for a lot of people. Chapter 4 looks way into the future as AIs become scientists, programmers, doctors, journalists, and basically take up all the really important jobs that people have, to the point where it's really hard for us to even find work, and that is eventually going to bring the cost of living way down, and it questions if that will be a good thing or a bad thing. It talks about the 5 A's, which is basically the progression of automation, progressively getting worse, and it starts out with automation and then goes to ascentation, abdication, aggravation, and eventually abomination. Abomination is referred to as treating people in a social security environment just by numbers and as disembodied data sources, which is clearly a very negative thing, but there's still hope that with a well-designed automation, it will result in lesser absentation and fewer abdications with only occasional aggravations. And that will be how we avoid the worst case scenario, I guess.